Arr, grog.
Well, hey guys, welcome to the Sideshow Podcast, our weekly slab of nonsense about the Archers. I'm Peter Fickling. I'm here with Kerry Warbis and Matthew Weir. So let's start off with some amazing news. We had Susie in a few weeks ago, and we've got the amazing Lee, the amazing Ryan Early coming in to talk to us on. Kerry? Is it the 28th?
Oh, God, I wish I'd looked at the calendar. It's the 22nd.
You're right at the top of mind, Ryan. Don't worry, we know the date.
This is the thing. I mean, you've got updates. I mean, are we even on his radar anymore?
Oh, yeah, we're definitely on. I have messages with him now and again. His Instagram is popping. He's very, very funny. He's very funny in himself and funny about playing Lee, who's very much not like him. So it's going to be fascinating to talk to him.
Well, Kerry is the person who has instigated all of this and has, made the connection. And yeah, it's very much coming across that we are not having Lee on the podcast. We're having a much more exciting sort of buccaneering adventurer. Matthew has been cyber stalking him. And what was it? Where did you last see him, Matthew?
His Instagram stories, he was in, well, I don't want to give his exact location away right now, but this isn't going out till Sunday. He was in Torridon, which, where are we saying that is?
It was Scotland.
Scottish Highlands,
yeah.
Isn't it? Let's hope he's on the pod, because the last time he was like clinging to the side of a cliff in a cyclone in his Instagram stories.
With a little dog as well. There was just his tent was really being blown around, wasn't it? And he had a tiny dog as company.
And he had a tiny can of red wine as well to get him through it.
Good man.
I am hoping that I have enough of a connection with him that I can stay in touch, because I am a massive camping nerd. And I need someone in the UK to sort of geek out with about all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's very exciting. I can't wait. Lee is. I mean, I've said some appalling things about him, so I'm looking for.
No, but Ryan, he admitted he listened to our Lee-based podcast where it was called something like
Lee is useless.
it was something like that. Why is Lee so wet or something like that? Yeah, and he really enjoyed it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So I think he's of a like mind, and he'll be able to give us all the insights we need and help us sort of see depths to a man who, from other angles, sort of has all of the maybe is puddle-like. Ryan has had a wind-lashed trip to Scotland, and I think Brian had an even more agonising journey with his beautiful daughter Alice.
Yeah, that went well, didn't it? Bless him. It started promisingly, and I quite like that the whole episode involved only them, apart from, was it Sandra on the phone or the receptionist at the rehab place? But it was predominantly Brian and Alice and their journey to the rehab place. And it sounded like it would go okay initially until there was mention of having to stop at service stations quite frequently. And I did think, she's not going to the loo. She's having swigs of things on the journey. Then she totally disappeared, didn't she? I loved when Brian was shouting into the toilets and there was a good echo of service station toilet sound, wasn't there? They did that well.
Kept Brian's denial intact until right at the last minute. Even when we were like, oh, for God's sake, he's like, oh yes, well, she's been in there for 50 minutes. You're like, yes, Brian. Your alcoholic daughter has needed the toilet 5 times, and each time has taken almost quarter of an hour.
Yeah.
But I felt they really did a fantastic job over the last few weeks of softening us up with it. To extend your boxing metaphor, of softening us up with a bunch of jabs and before landing the haymaker this week. The conversation with Peggy, everyone's been so proud in her. Shula was talking about how brave she was. Kate was the supportive older sister. I mean, I was completely suckered into thinking that Alice was going to kind of meekly go off and sort of accept her treatment.
And then before we knew it, she was going off on one in the pub, wasn't she, with that horrid voice of hers? I've been sitting here like an idiot.
She went, it was Jim and the Brick and Susan all over again, wasn't it? All those ranges of different voices. I mean, where do you find a pub next to a service station anyway? It sounded like they were in some lovely pub garden. Like she'd walk down the hard shoulder like Alan Partridge singing Goldfinger. And next thing you know, she's sat in a pub.
Yeah, good.
Where Brian manages to trace. I mean, there are the W name. there are some service stations that have those attached to them as a pub.
Oh, is
You
there?
can call that a pub. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when she was getting the booze, I was thinking, well, everyone knows there's normally an M&S nowadays, isn't there, in the service station where you can get some miniature bottles of wine and what have you.
Oh, they're cocktails in a can.
Yeah.
Let's face it, it's not difficult to get booze in Britain, is it?
No, this is true. I did quite like Brian's, attempted tactic of trying to get her drunk enough to be able to get her to rehab, but she sussed that instead of a G&T, he just had a tea.
I felt that was one of the more true reflections of alcoholism, where someone, who was it, who said, she didn't, it was Eddie, who said she didn't mean it, it was the alcohol. And I'm thinking, no, that's not how it works. Alcohol strips back layers and it can reveals bitternesses.
No,
and
it was the woman in the rehab place, wasn't it? Who, when she was saying, "I hate you, you're an awful father," she said that isn't her speaking; it's the alcohol.
And that annoyed thank you, Kerry. That's absolutely right, and it annoyed the crap out of me because when she was in the pub and she was, she spotted that Brian was trying to trick her, and her outrage was genuine. I mean, booze doesn't make you. I mean, it dulls your critical faculties, but it doesn't suddenly turn you into an idiot. It doesn't suddenly turn off your awareness of other people. And that was why I enjoyed that scene so much, because they left Alice intact. She was, the acting was fantastic. The way that she played this kind of outraged, sort of almost sozzled, drunk. I thought it was magnificent. And Kerry, I feel like Matthew and I owe you an apology. We've quietly mocked your love of Brian over the last couple of months, and here he was. Charles Collingwood was amazing, and Brian was amazing.
Yes, he was. He was amazing then, and then he was amazing tonight when he was suddenly having this awareness. And I know it's a long time coming and so on, but when he and Eddie were speaking to each other, it was very touching.
Yeah.
Strange combination of people, really, to open up to Eddie. But Eddie sussed him, didn't he? You could tell when he was going, really? She went happily like a lamb, or whatever Brian said. And then Brian had to just go, actually, no, it was all awful.
It took him a while, didn't it? And it was the way that he must have had a script as well, because when Shula asked Neil earlier, he went, "Oh, she went straight in, good as gold," and that was exactly what he said to Eddie, wasn't it? So he's obviously been just trotting these same lines out.
And to Jenny,
and there was just that moment where he went, "I lied," I thought that was brilliant. How he just kind of went around that.
It's just quite sweet of him, I think, because yes, it's denial, but he's trying to protect Alice from embarrassment and also protect Jennifer from worry. And, sometimes he comes good, does our Brian.
And also the fact that he's he's a clever man. He'll be aware of how easily other people will know that he's been in the dark, and that because he's been sort of bowling around. He's been telling off Fallon. He's been sort of telling. I mean, I think that over the next few weeks we're going to have Brian going to Adam and saying, "You were right. You have been this dutiful, if not thoroughly incompetent son who has always done the right thing, no matter how annoyingly. And I have lavished praise on this golden child. And and so thank you for your loyalty. And please, can you rethink things?" I was thinking that today.
God, I hope not.
Damn.
Yeah. But I did think that Brian sounded so broken. And I mean, I know it's a ridiculous comparison, but I only have a 2-year-old son. He climbed out of my reach today, so I'm 6'1", and I couldn't even touch his heel. He climbed so far up this bloody climbing frame, and I was rattled for ages afterwards. Just sort of this sort of panic, because I was, I had this kind of pleading voice, like, "Oh, come on, I'll come to Daddy," And for a good few minutes afterwards, I was a bit shaky. So God knows what it must feel like with So sorry, Kerry, to have 2 adult ones must be bloody awful.
Well, when mine were little and up a climbing frame, I'd be, you'll be all right.
It's normally them getting you down from the climbing frame, isn't it, Kerry?
Mum,
not again.
Yeah. But he was sorry, indulge me slightly. He was right at the edge of this big metal frame, so he was beyond all of the soft play area. He was now right on the edge, and there was nothing but a good 50-foot drop between him and and the wood chippings. But anyway, I did anyway. I really felt for Brian, and I think that that will have knocked him onto his heels.
Yeah, I mean, the whole catalyst, I thought, for her wanting to make that final stop, I don't think the runner was right there in at the top of her list of ideas, but then she got into that chat about what if she got separated from Martha, and what if there was another lockdown, and then it was right on the heels of that she said, can we make another stop? And I think that just seemed to be the thing that tipped her a little bit.
What if Martha forgets me, forgets who I am? These are genuine thoughts you would have being away from your child at that age for a month. It's a long time, isn't it, when they're so small?
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, I did 3 weeks without Cyrus, and it was terrible. But it's like, you know, and also the knowledge that she, you know, it's all her fault. Like, there is no one else to blame. I mean, obviously, she can blame other people. She can blame circumstance, and she can blame her upbringing, and she can look at sort of, you know, things that have happened to her to make her the way she is for her alcoholism. But she very clearly has made these decisions that are forcing her away from Martha.
She quickly veers then to they'd be better off without me. So she's really torn between these, like, I need to be with Martha, and then they'd be better off without me, Chris and Martha, when she was talking to Peggy.
Yeah.
No, was it Peggy? No, it was Fallon, wasn't it? I think she was talking to. Yeah, Fallon did a sterling work with Lynda and with Alice this week.
I mean, the awful thing is, to some extent, I mean, I don't believe this. I mean, I think obviously the best version of Martha's life is the one where Alice is recovered and there being her mother. But if she's in her current state, she's 100% right. They are better off without her.
That was hinted at, wasn't it? Because, I mean, Kate, there was that chat. No, it was with Peggy, wasn't it? With Alice and Peggy, where she said Martha needs her mother, and she said, not this mother.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite powerful, that she recognised, I'm not the person that I need to be in her life right now. Yeah. I mean, the biggest cliffhanger for me was, what crisp did Brian buy?
Yeah, he said, what flavour?
And it cut.
Yeah.
They should have cued the music then.
Yeah.
Kerry, you're not only the snack expert, you're also the Brian expert. Please deliver your verdict.
Which crisps would Alice choose and which would Brian choose? Do you mean that?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, crisps. It's pork scratchings, isn't it? Obviously, all the
time.
Marks and Spencer's do gin and tonic flavoured crisps. That would probably be Alice's choice, wouldn't it?
No. That's all silly nonsense.
Prawn cocktail. Brian's prawn cocktail.
I mean, I'm totally on board with the fact that better out than in is not really Brian's motto as well.
Where was that?
Did he? What? What's that?
When he said he cried, when he told Eddie I cried, and Eddie said, "Oh, better out than in." He went, "That's never really been my motto."
I operate. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about crisps then. Yeah, him and Eddie was so marvellous, I thought. Bless Eddie. Honestly, you know, he had really good empathy for Brian, and they're not the same sorts of people, but they were connecting so well.
I do take that Eddie might be, you know, he's not Brian's friend in like a kind of, you know, traditional sense. Like, they don't arrange to meet in the pub, and every now and again there have been scenes where Brian sort of kind of like gasps with annoyance because Eddie's, you know, marching across to sort of like, you know, bend his ear about some project. But you know, they have known each other and lent on each other and worked together for decades. So, and seen each other warts and all. So actually, you know, it does, there is a kind of strange logic to it.
Yeah, true. Man to man talk, I suppose. I think he caught him off guard as well. He just like, I can't pretend anymore.
I mean, and also it's, you know, Eddie is a bullshit free zone. Like, he's not, you know, and I think everyone knows that. So it's not, you know, you can't kid a kidder, can you? Like, there's no sort of turning around to Eddie and saying, oh no, actually, I think, you know, he's sort of a very straight shooting man, and that would probably draw that out of you as well.
God, that's interesting. I would never think of him as being bullshit free, Eddie. I think he's pure bullshit, really.
And anyone that has a friend called Terry Two Phones is a bullshitter.
Oh no, I don't mean that he's not. I mean, obviously he has a very tenuous relationship with the truth. I just mean that he doesn't waste much energy on airs and graces. He's the opposite of Hyacinth's bouquet. So he you know, if he's upset about something, he would say it. Like, he wouldn't just sort of dance around it, I don't think.
Well, he caught himself, didn't he? He was like, I hope they don't vomit all over my limo. And he was like, oh, sorry, Brian.
Oh yeah, because sorry, thank you for bringing that up, Matthew. Because of course all stag do's want to be in limos.
In the countryside.
Here we go. We limo talk. That can be a special episode when we hit like number 1,000 or something.
Yeah, 50-year-old lads that were going to use the limo. Is that right? Is that what he said?
Yeah, a bunch of 50-year-old mates who apparently are going on the lash and then going to be, trying not to vomit all over Eddie's limo.
And this is on Monday, isn't it? So obviously something's going to go wrong with this, with Harrison maybe, and the license of it and all of that. Do you think?
Rex has to bail him out.
No, Rex is just going to write a shitty review, isn't he?
Yeah, Rex the keyboard warrior. But yeah, it's all anyway. But yeah, Eddie in his limo. But it's I thought that he was a very good shoulder to cry on, and everyone's a huge fan of Eddie, aren't they? That's almost a litmus test. Like, if someone said to you they didn't like, oh, do you listen to the Archers? Do you? Oh, brilliant! It's like, oh yeah, but I can't stand Eddie. Like, gone, you're dead to me. Get out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had a bit of a test of people's resolve this week when people actually challenged our approval of Russ on Twitter.
Yeah. There was 2 polls. Shula and it was Kate, Pip, Shula, and Russ in poll 1 that was done by at Bagwaller on Twitter, and controversially, Shula and Russ came equal, and then we did a second poll in which COVID came ahead of Shula, and Russ got almost double the votes.
So when Shula said to Lynda this week, I think people have probably had enough of COVID, not as much as you.
She infected this whole week. Like, every scene, there she was in the corner. I mean, she's trying to pollute Susan's marriage to Neil, and then poor Lynda and Joy just trying to. Although no, I'm going to contradict myself. She was sort of, I guess, vaguely human when she was supporting
about
Joy.
The fate. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah. Fair enough. But her bleating it, bounding in with the secateurs. And really, surely you would be able to tell that the atmosphere there was a bit frosty because Susan had been really snapping at Neil, and you're going to the supermarket, the list is on the table, and you better make it snappy. And she had a right old meltdown, didn't she? Saying it went from that to saying, we're not communicating, there's something wrong. And Neil was utterly baffled by the whole whirlwind of strangeness.
It was a rare slip by the lovely Neil, wasn't it? Like, that he'd been saying to Shula, obviously, that things were a little bit fraught at home. But he obviously hadn't sort of thought about how it might appear that he's round the corner doing favours for another woman.
Yeah,
I think are you two in disagreement about this then? Because you seem to think that, Kerry, you seem to think that Susan went over the top, and Peter, you seem to think Neil was being neglectful.
No, I think that both can be true.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. No, I think that Neil was baffled, I think, because of how Susan was approaching it all. It all just hit him in a big tidal wave of angsty prickliness. And he was, where's this all coming from? He should maybe have considered that he's not seeing Susan right, but is happily sorting Shula's garden out. I mean, and putting some shelves up and so on. And poor old Susan is sort of just a bit of a mess really at home, isn't she? She's trying to spin every plate going. He can't even remember when she's working, when she isn't working. There's loads of those conversations, isn't there? No, I didn't say that. That's not what we agreed. It's this, that, and the other. So she's frazzled.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm not a big one for kind of gender cliches, but Neil was making the sort of cliched male mistake of sort of focusing on the practical things he needed to do to help, and not realizing that not remembering that here's Susan being a hugely upset mother, and then also a sort of proxy mother for her grandchild, all at the same time. Whilst and what she actually needed is for Neil to be there and listen to her and talk to her, and he's off.
I blame Shula as well, because Shula's like, yeah, put the shelves up, do the garden. She knows that Susan's got this sort of young baby to be looking after and a job, and did it not occur to her that actually, sod doing odd jobs for me for the cheap horse riding lessons, just have the horse riding lessons the first couple. You don't have to be doing this sort of labour for me. You've got enough on your plate. I'll be kind. And it was some sort of trial lessons, wasn't it, that he's paying for by doing odd jobs.
I mean, I don't want to chill Peter's blood, but is there a possibility that Neil is not being honest with himself here?
Yeah, that did cross my mind.
With his denial about everything's fine, what are you talking about? But he has admitted twice to Susan that he sees it as some kind of light relief going over there, as some kind of form of escapism.
Yeah, where's Susan's light relief?
Yeah, there is no light relief for Susan, is there? I mean, I also thought Shula got a bit hot under the collar when Lynda asked her where she thought Neil might be slotted in.
Oh, yeah. She changed the subject quick sharp at that point, didn't she? That was really weird. And I don't know why Lynda was sort of picking up on that, actually. It was a dig on Linda's part, I felt. Yeah, what was it she said? It was to do with slotting in, wasn't it?
She said that Neil's offered to help out.
Yeah.
And Shula, you might have ideas as to how Neil might be slotted in. She just went, should we just concentrate on the main idea of the main concept rather than talking about Neil and slots?
I mean, the script writers might just be playing with us. I don't know.
They might be. I mean, it's just... but I tell you what, if you're going to weaponize a word, make it secateurs. Susan did fantastically well with that, didn't she? And so he's handled your shelving and he's had a poke around in your garden. But then there was that moment where, I'm going to clip this bit, the bit where Shula said, "I feel like I've come in and said all the wrong things."
Yep.
It's like put that on your subheading on your bio.
Yeah, I tweeted that and said evergreen tweet. Yeah.
But so, I mean, I'm not trying to get too kind of meta and sort of review our own podcast while we're on it, but I get the feeling, the three of us have been bouncing all over the place trying to talk about everything that's been going on this week. And that was very much my feeling. It's like, there's been so much that's going on. We've got the whole Shula Neil thing that in turn is kind of folding out of the anxiety at the Carter household. You've then got obviously all the stuff with Alice's alcoholism, and we haven't even started to talk about Kate or Fallon or
the pandemic
Peggy.
fate.
Yeah, it's a lot happened this week.
Yeah. I mean, last week there was a lot of people weren't happy about the fact that they barely left Lower Loxley last week, and I just felt like that was just like a calming week in a spa, whereas this week it reminded me of like that meme of Graham Souness where everything's revolving around his angry face.
Which bit was the bit where he planted the flag in the middle of the Galatasaray pitch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, amazing.
Maybe that was Kate.
Kate was horrendous. She was awful to Alice, really whipping her up into a frenzy about Peggy, wasn't she? And sort of going, "I'm going to march round there and tell her what I think of her." And then when she spoke to Jakob, was saying, "I hate her," about Peggy. I mean,
very odd.
Fair point. But I think Jakob must be thinking, what?
Jakob had clearly just finished sewing up a body as well.
Yeah, he had blood all over his face.
Oh, it's a horse.
It was a horse, barbed wire, something like that. Yeah,
there are strong Dexter vibes coming off Jakob, but Dexter's likable in his own way. But Kate. Obviously, one of her personality traits is that she always has to insert herself into any problem and make herself the center of it. And it was a masterclass this week. It was when she was talking to Alice about Alice's alcoholism. It was all about her being the big sister. It's like, well, you've never been anyone's big sister. I mean, maybe factually yes, but not relationship wise.
Yeah.
And then with Peggy, it's like suddenly it's like, oh, she can't even spend the night in the house with her grandmother. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I like Kate most of the time. In a Russ sense, I love her for how entertaining she is. But she was a hard listen this week.
She was when she marched into Jakob's surgery or whatever it was, and I loved how he said, "Did we have an appointment?" And she was, "Am I a thoroughbred?"
No.
She was vile, absolutely vile. And actually, when she was being weird to Jakob, it's going, "Hi, Kate, looking good, Kate. Thanks for bringing lunch, Kate." She sounded to me like drunk Alice.
Yeah.
Kate being vile sounds like drunk Alice to me, more and more.
I'm not trying to win some kind of argument with anyone, especially not you guys, but this has been part of my thing. Like, you can be mental and not an alcoholic, and you can be alcoholic and not mental. Alice is obviously very disturbed at the moment. I'm not trying to deny any of that. But Kate is a very clear example of the fact that you can be eating nothing but, tofu and alfalfa sprouts and still be absolutely crackers.
Yeah.
Is crackers a PC word anymore? Am I allowed to say crackers?
Well, you said mental, so crackers is,
Yeah. I said beep, but can I say? Yeah.
She'd be whole wheat crackers. I mean, I don't know if it's by fault or by design. I've mentioned before, I lived in a very hippie area of Bristol, and there was a farm shop in Picton Street in Montpellier which sold only, organic things, only, animals reared in, all their meat was, very as friendly as it can be in that situation. But the two women that ran the shop were the two biggest fucking twats you've ever met in your life. And they were obsessed with this. I always used to call it the hippie Nazi. I'm going to be a hippie, but in order to get all of my ideals, I'm going to be an absolute Nazi getting there.
Oh, hippies are fascinating as a culture. I think
we clicked into this on Twitter, didn't we, Kerry?
I did. Yeah. I sort of went, oh, Kate's not really that much of a hippie, is she? Mind you, they don't tend to be, do they? It's. I just find them. It's the classic thing, isn't it? Don't never trust a hippie is a saying, isn't it? And also, yeah.
It's John Lydon, wasn't it?
It is.
Never trust a hippie.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, many hippies have bank managers as dads, don't they? Kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, I'm dropping out of society. Well, you're not really, are you? Because you go home to Cheltenham every weekend, don't you? And everything's really comfy.
Can I offer some balance, maybe, to the whole? Because I had that attitude. I still do have that attitude largely. But my friend Kathy in California, so we used to live in the sort of capital of hippiedom. And I'm going to add an addendum to everything you said. I think is 100% correct, but I'm going to say people who are performatively hippies, because Kathy and a lot of her friends are sort of hippies who just wear normal clothes and they go about their day, and they still would describe themselves as hippies, and they kind of live through that whole movement. But but it's the people who need to still kind of wear certain clothes, or kind of like, it's sort of very much, but within 30 seconds of talking to you. It's the difference between someone who's a vegetarian because they have, it's the performative vegetarian versus the sort of just the person who's doing it for the right reasons.
You are absolutely correct. The performative aspect is the thing, isn't it? I mean, a real hippie wouldn't be performative.
No, exactly. I used to go to this food market in so it's the same situation as Matthew, except sort of probably just bigger and more American. And you're there trying to queue for your food, and some little needle-elbowed cow from down the road comes in, and and it treats you like absolute dirt. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, where are your values now, you little witch? Anyway,
I mean, I will say that, I mean, in Montpellier you have the Trustafarian hippies whose dads are bank managers and get them there. But you do have obviously there are nice hippies. I met my ex for lunch in New York, and she's a lovely hippie, and the only thing that amused me was when her food arrived, she ordered a side of mashed potato, and when that came first, she waved her hands above it to channel energy.
Oh, Jesus
It's like, it's mashed potato.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Channeling your mash.
All that sort of stuff's fine, as long as you have a sense of humour about it, as long as you can understand that other people are going to find it ridiculous. Like, my wife used to make me drive her to goat yoga all the time.
God, that was actually on The Archers, wasn't it? Goat yoga. That was one of Kate's things, or somebody.
Goat yoga?
Yeah.
Goat yoga. Yeah.
No, you're kidding.
Everyone on Twitter was like, that can't possibly exist. And then loads of pictures of goat yoga went on Twitter saying, yep, it's a thing.
I have at least 30 photos of my wife doing goat yoga. The thing is, my wife knew it was insane and ridiculous. But
Good.
and she didn't afterwards. She wasn't walking around going, "Oh my God, the healing powers of the goats." It's like, no, this is a huge, indulgent, ridiculously opulent, activity that you could only afford in the sort of most extremely wealthy versions of, our society.
Anyway, back to Kate. Why do you think she was doing that with Jakob? She was saying, obviously she doesn't want to live with grandma anymore. She said, I think it's time we moved in together. And he was like, well, why are you saying it right now? Something's happened, hasn't it? He's no fool. And I loved that he went, we tried it before, it didn't work.
Yes.
No, thank you. Don't. I actually led me to wonder why they're together at all. Really, because she was quite rude, wasn't she? And presumptuous.
She said something strange to him where she said, yeah, but we were a beep couple then and we're not now. And I didn't catch the adjective that she used before couple. I was like, what did she say there? It wasn't new, but it was odd. I missed it.
Yeah,
sorry.
she did say something like, we're now a more mature couple or something like that, wasn't it? As if they've moved on. And he said, but we're still the same people. He was just very dismissive of her sudden barging in. You can bring all the sandwiches you like, but, I'm not going to go, yeah, okay then, in the middle of slaughtering a horse or whatever he'd just been doing.
He's doing horse yoga went wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the only person he's ever sort of easygoing with is Chris, isn't it? Chris Carter. Because he jokes around. He used to joke around with Chris sometimes, but pretty much everyone else, he's just this very sort of matter-of-fact and straight character. I don't think we've heard a kind of jokey side of him with anyone else. He did get a bit lovey-dovey about Kate once, but anyway, the point is, I mean, what was Kate expecting? He's very, very consistent.
Yeah, they've been together long enough for her to have. She should have realised that this approach is not going to work. Being utterly spontaneous and barging into his workplace and saying, we're going to live together. And then getting a right pod on when he went, whoa, don't know where this is coming from. She's like, well, I'll leave the rest of the sandwiches here then. Very childish behaviour.
I'm not sure I've ever been surprised by a loved one at work and replied with, in what context? He's just zero bullshit with him, isn't it? Like this, and the no filter.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. That's peculiar language, but the sentiment is very true. Like, I think if I'm at work, I'm not a different person, but I think I do have a very kind of, if Charlotte turned up at my work, I think there would be a bit of me that was like, without warning, like I would want there to be an emergency. I wouldn't be like, oh, well, that's great. And I don't think I think she'd feel the same way the other way around. I don't, she's got a game face for her work, and I don't think she'd want me to sort of break that.
Bursting in like a Peter Fickling phone call.
Yes.
Wow, Matthew, come on. No, it's not. I mean, everyone knows I'm a hypocrite. It's not very nice to point it out on air.
We spoke with Susie a couple of weeks ago about who would be the Terminator in Ambridge. I think it would be Jakob.
Yeah.
What I love about him, though, is, I know we've just spoken about it a bit, but how, when Kate was saying about leaving Peggy, and he just so logically cuts her down to the quick and says, so you're going to leave your ancient grandmother on her own?
Yeah.
And even if you can't forgive your grand, show some compassion.
Especially after being so... And I'll just use the word again, performatively Kate-like in her show of being the amazing granddaughter for months and months and months, telling anyone who'll stand around long enough just how amazing she's been to deal with Gran, and massively, and also using Peggy's age and infirmity as an excuse to get out of things and do other things.
So is she really, really trying to tell us that because of Peggy's recognizing Alice's alcoholism ages ago, but not telling everyone, she wants to move out? That's it. Is that it?
I mean, there's no. I mean, sorry, I'm going to be a stupid script person again. There's not enough room in the script for it to get more complicated, right? We can't have a subplot to why Kate and Peggy, why Kate's cross with Peggy, apart from what's being presented. Surely, there's just no room.
There's quite a modern term which has come up on the left and right in terms of media, and I think it when I hear Kate, manufactured outrage. Yeah. She seems to get herself in a tiz, doesn't she? And she winds herself into these frenzies, And, it's always Jakob that has to kind of... He did it before, didn't he? A couple of months ago, he had to stop her flying off the handle about something, about passing over the land and the argument she had with Brian. And and her and Alice were kind of self-winding, weren't they, in their conversation on Monday? In the end, it was like, it's like he spilt your pint almost. It's the Ambridge version of that. And then she went to have it out with Peggy.
Yeah, Alice had to calm Kate down, didn't she, on the Monday episode, to the point where they made up and had a hug, and then Kate said, "Can I help you pack then?" And she's, yes.
Yes, she got a hug at the 14th time of asking, didn't she? 'Cause she was repelled the previous 13 times.
Yeah.
What did we think about the actual... I mean, it was a week of pick-me-up talks. There was supportive chats. What did we think about the chat between Alice and Peggy when she actually went round there?
I thought Peggy did really well to apologise. It was a good apology. It was sincere. She called out her own faults. She caught herself when she started to make an excuse, and then she said, "No, actually, that's just typical me trying to ride roughshod over everyone." And Alice, I thought it was well written and well acted. The way that Alice went in there full beans, and then was caught by Peggy's sincerity and Peggy's humility.
Yeah, my favourite line was, "I don't know why I think I'm better than other people." And everyone who's listening is going, "No, we don't either."
No, but then Kate was there alluding to the fact she thinks she's great because she's got all that money in the bank, which is a very hippie concept, isn't it? To be jealous of other
and
people's
actually
wealth.
Kate would happily take half of it. And, it's a weird thing for her to be outraged about, isn't it, really?
Especially having lived rent-free in the house for how many months. And when, if Peggy and Kate do have it out, I don't imagine that Peggy will be wasting quite as much sentimentality in trying to search for apologies to Kate. It's like, no, you've been a pain in the arse. I look after you as much as you look after me. You've lived rent-free. Shut up.
You can do no more, can you, as Peggy, than say, "I'm really sorry. You'd think I would have learned by now. I'm so proud of you. You're so brave to go to rehab, and I love you so
and she
much."
also cleared up the misconception that Alice had, that she was the one who had that Chris had told her that this had been sort of like some kind of conspiracy. No, in fact, that Peggy had acted off her own intel.
Yeah. Because Alice was fearful that basically Peggy and Chris had been sort of talking to each other incessantly behind her back, and that wasn't the case at all. Yeah.
The only thing missing from the end of that was, after they kind of bonded, she should have just said, "Now, have you spoken to that prick, your Uncle Tony, recently?"
Yes, I'm not sorry about being horrid about him.
Do you know what? Since we've been doing the podcast, I don't think we've ever had a real big Tony plot. And Matthew's, I feel like there's a lot of momentum building up in Matthew to sort of unload on poor unsuspecting Tony.
Well, I just want to know, when Jakob gets Peggy's answer machine, what the message is. Please leave a message, unless you're for my fucking useless son.
Poor Tony.
We did have some light relief from all of the Kate and Peggy and Alice and Brian stuff, which was, of course, Joy and Lynda and Fallon planning the fate, and Fallon acting as a shoulder to cry on. Matthew, you must have been enthralled.
Yeah, I was. I mean, there was when Fallon said, "Do you mind if I pull up a seat and chat?" I was like, "Oh, damn you, Lynda."
Yeah, Lynda was odd, wasn't she? But Fallon came good again, didn't she, with Lynda? She sort of recognised that she's having a bit of a wobble because Joy's coming all bright and breezy, and it doesn't matter if you don't like my idea. We can thinking caps on again, positive, and Lynda's feeling very deflated and thinks her ideas are very tired. And Joy's coming in with an amazing scarecrow idea. Which
Can
isn't
I just
amazing
say,
at all.
that was the best Paul Gascoigne impression I've ever heard.
Oh, thanks.
They did stitch in a little bit of COVID content through that. when
Oh,
Fallon was looking after Lynda.
yeah. Was that to do with the scarecrow thing being good for everyone who's been locked up
No,
inside?
no.
Oh,
You reminded me just now, Kerry, when you said
mm,
about how Fallon was saying, you loss of confidence, feeling a bit
mm,
vulnerable, and Fallon tied that into an article she'd read, and sort of obviously
that's right.
It wasn't an article. Was it an article she'd read, or an article that the guy in the cafe who was on holiday in Ambridge was
that's the
eating?
one. So
On
yeah,
holiday in Ambridge.
Yeah, I know. And then he started. He like had a brain fart and just spoke to Fallon.
well, so we know that Ambridge is on the green list, not the amber list. Then you don't need a double vaccine to go to
The
Ambridge.
Ambridge list.
Hey,
Well, there was a very good article in Private Eye about the fact that everyone was at the beginning of lockdown. Everyone was relocating to Ambridge because it seemed to be the only place in the country that was COVID free.
I miss my Private Eye subscription.
oh well, I mean, I treated myself to a year's subscription based on so I read this interview with Ian Hislop, and he was the sales pitch he gave to me, which I bought into, is the fact that it's one of the few truly independent investigative journalists.
Absolutely. I mean, like the journalistic side of it,
Love it.
going way back into the 60s, it generally reports things that don't turn up in
Yeah.
probably won't ever turn up in the newspapers under this regime, but they get there 3 to 4 years early.
I might treat myself again. Yeah, I sort of used to have it all the time on subscription and then hit a bit of a rocky financial patch and sort of went, no, that's got to go. So I think I'm going to take that back up again. It's perfect for reading on the loo, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good airplane. That and Viz and a pack of pork pies. That's what you get as you come through the airport.
Since I gave up drinking, I do occasionally, like, I don't do like a tally of how much money I've saved, but like if it's like a Private Eye subscription, I do think to myself, well, that's like, a couple of nights in a pub, that you're not spending.
I used to
Yeah.
price things in pints.
Did you?
Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it anymore because I don't go out to the pub anymore. But
That's something. Yeah, but when I used to be like a heavy drinker, that was definitely how I would kind of quantify things. I'd be like, well, that's about 5 pints.
yeah, it's a very Bristol thing to price to price something in pints. I know.
I think it's universal, Matthew. to be
Maybe.
honest with you.
I've just never heard anyone else do it other than my Bristolian friends.
But I remember giving directions to someone around London, and I was like, yes, so you'll come to the Salisbury, go right there, and you'll see a little pub on the left called the Lamb and Flag. Go through a little alleyway there called Lazenby Court. You go down it, and they're like, you've done this whole direction. You've gone halfway across London just using pubs. I was like,
Yeah. Pass my friend Barry on the park bench.
yeah. Give him a little, give him 10p. Yeah. Oh, just inflation, but
I'm going to sign up for that again. Definitely.
Yeah, well, my mum packed off about 6 Private Eyes to me recently, and they got rejected because she hadn't filled out, the post office didn't put the right third country customs stuff on it. So they went back.
Yeah, so I think Lynda was boosted by Fallon in the end because she said, there's a reason that we nominated you for your MBE. And
yes, it was nice, wasn't it?
yeah, it was nice. Fallon's great at that kind of thing, isn't she? Taking the time to notice stuff and try to do something good about it.
It's impossible to do a podcast like this without repeating yourself a little bit, and so I don't feel too guilty. But one of the themes I keep bringing up is how they are developing some of these formerly younger, now becoming middle-aged characters, and I think they're sort of like people like Fallon is being very, very well positioned as a kind of authority, a sort of solid, a sort of a north star by which you can kind of judge others, or sort of unless she's going through a crisis, she's very easily sort of, it's like, Fallon has said it's solid, it's reliable, it's true. Because
she expressed to Lynda that she's how worried she is for Alice, because Alice texted her, didn't she, saying see you in a month.
Yeah.
While she was sitting with Lynda, and Lynda repaid the morale boosting gift by saying to Fallon, with a friend like you, Alice stands so much of a better chance.
It was all very loved up, wasn't it? Fallon said, "You're the boss," and she just said, "You're a great friend." Yeah, quite moving.
It was a tough listen this week, and it was definitely for me necessary to have that plot line there to kind of help leaven the kind of the dread and horror of some of the other kind of tougher scenes. And I don't mean Shula, I do mean Brian and Alice. So yeah, I was grateful for that at the end of it all. But I mean, I feel like we've done. Hopefully, I mean, I feel sort of dizzy just trying to sort of collate all of the stuff we've talked about in the last.
It was a hot mess, wasn't it, this week?
A hot mess.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see how else it was going to go down. I mean, like it was such, as I said earlier on, it was such a crammed and busy week in Ambridge.
Can I just ask you, lads, what would you rather win, a box of chocolates or a jar of pickle?
Jar of pickle.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, definitely a jar of pickle.
Yeah.
Kerry, do you want me asking why you asked that?
Sorry?
Is that relevant to the Archers?
Yes, it is, Peter. Now, have a think as to why that was relevant. I think Matthew knows.
Is that a prize at the Fete?
It was.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The Scarecrow prize, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like, is scarecrows like a safe word in Ambridge? Everyone, like, when Fallon met Lynda, I know we're backtracking here, but she went, Lynda, scarecrows. Like, she was just totally bewitched by it. And I think Linda's just got like post-traumatic stress disorder from when she put that mannequin out the front to protest the name change of the bull, and she's like, no more fucking scarecrows, please.
I think a billion villages across the land have done this scarecrow thing, haven't they? It's a really old hat, and I saw on Twitter lots of people going, well, when it happened in our village, it looks really creepy at night that there's these sort of scarecrows hanging in front of people's gardens.
I don't know if I've sent you to the video, but there is a couple that rides through my dad's village, and they have a horse and carriage, and they dress up as different characters and have a boombox in the back, and they come through like playing different music and stuff like that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'll have to show it to you. It's very Wicker. Every time my dad sends that to me, I send him a Wicker Man gif. Anyway, Peter, you were saying.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for not remembering the pickle incident. It's not only been a hectic week in Ambridge, but I for once didn't have a chance to listen to all the episodes twice, so I don't need an excuse. But there you go. I've let the side down quite terribly.
Don't apologise.
Anyway,
some people do podcasts and don't listen at all.
Hey.
I can't even imagine that. But talking of letting the side down, our wonderful listeners certainly have not done that. Our figures are going up magnificently. We must assume that's due to the Herculean efforts of everyone out there forwarding Kerry's tweets, joining Matthew on Instagram and Facebook, and of course the all-important reviews and ratings on iTunes. So please, if you haven't already, go and review us on iTunes. Give us a few stars, however many you think we're worthwhile. We're not going to threaten violence this week. And yes, guys, what definitive things can people do on the social medias?
Yeah, I simply, if you know people who listen to the Archers who don't follow us on Twitter necessarily, make them follow us on Twitter. Get them engaged on there by force.
We're back
or just
again. Okay,
yeah, sorry. Or just recommend that they do give us a listen wherever, even if they're not on social media. That would be marvelous.
Yeah, and weirdly, I've actually some of the kind of more critical responses we've had, I sort of find some of the most interesting. It's like, so like sometimes I've heard like, oh, I sent it to a friend and they weren't particularly interested, but I'm just grateful that they even gave it a go and tried to push us out there, because that's what's helped us gradually, week on week, put on those numbers. And Matthew, what about the Facebooks?
Facebooks are good. We're called the group is called the Cider Shed Podcast. That's where you find us. Certainly, if you listen to the Archers, or if you think people might be interested, again, share it. The community is building there. All we managed to stir up last week was a massive fight about pork pies. But, job's done.
It's a very
Agents
important
of chaos.
matter.
Yeah. And, no TikTok as yet, but we are on Instagram, the Cider Shed Pod. And likewise, do the same. Come and look for us there. Share the account with anyone you think might be interested. And, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And email us, please. I've had some lovely emails this week. Quite often there's sort of people are spotting plots way down the line. So, I do have these things stored, but some I got a very interesting email this week that's might come back to the fore in a few weeks' time. But yeah, so please to get in touch. It's hello@thecidershed.com. And so far we haven't been a very interactive show, but that doesn't mean we can't be. If and when the right email hits our inbox, or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. So guys, thank you so much. I've had a great week. I'm sorry. We don't often say positive things, but it's been a really wonderful week for the podcast this week. Kerry managed to land Lee, which is just amazing. Ryan early, so thank you so much to Kerry for that. Matthew's been spending all of his free time sort of posting wildly on Instagram when he could have just been relaxing after teaching children all year. And no, it's been wonderful. I'm feeling very, very excited about things.
Yay! And we're hitting. I'm aiming to hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, as I mentioned last week. Also, England won the football last night.
Yes.
Did they?
Yeah, they won the football.
Cheating, diving, filthy England. Won.
Kerry was at Wembley with her laser pen last night.
Oh, shut it! Yeah, that was sad, wasn't it?
I mean, I don't. The only thing for me is the disingenuity of not just owning up to the fact it was a soft penalty. It was.
It definitely was soft.
And we're owed some good luck.
But sharing a house with someone from the South American continent, they were like, "That's definitely a penalty."
Well, exactly.
It's obvious.
Exactly. People criticising it. Yeah, fools.
People who clear 2 foot of snow off their car every morning don't think it's a penalty. People who are sort of like falling over in their flip flops on the Copacabana beach.
What are flip flops, Peter? They're Havaianas.
Sorry.
Yeah, were you going to say something, Matthew?
I was going to ask a question, but I don't want to tempt fate.
Go on.
Is it coming home?
Yep.
Oh, that song.
It is coming home. It is. I predicted this on my family spreadsheet when this competition began.
If anyone wants to sneak out and get terrible, then there you go. You heard it here first.
I did end up with a monumental hangover today, and I don't normally get hangovers, and it's not the land of my fathers and mothers, but I did get a bit carried away last night.
It was a wonderful night, honestly. So thrilling. Yeah, I can't wait for Sunday. For the omnibus, obviously.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Well, thank you so much, guys. I tried to say something sincere and ebullient, and those two went off on a football rant, so I'm going to go and quietly cry because, I'm on my own.
We love you, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
We do.
Cheers, everyone.
See you next week.
See ya. Bye.